Before I start with today's video, I want to say that I've recently passed my first milestone on Patreon, and my patrons still have not given me what they would like to see as rewards for supporting me. So if you want to give me an idea of what you think a reward should be on Patreon, let me know. And I want to let you all know that from the bottom of my heart, I don't understand why you give me money, but I'm eternally grateful for everything that you guys do, all the support you guys give me, all the comments that you guys leave. Regardless if you see me thumb them up or respond to them, I read all of them. So thank you guys for your constant support and supporting my channel. You guys are the backbone and the drive that keeps me doing what I do, and I love every single one of you. And that's not just to my patrons, that's to everybody who supports my channel. So thank you guys so much, and I hope you guys enjoy this. Hello everybody, my name is Tyler Valle, and some of you who've been subscribing to me for a while may know that I'm a bit of an indie developer, though I don't really use the title due to the fact that I have a really negative opinion on indie development in its current state. Indie development is in a really awkward place right now where there are dozens of tools that will allow people who have nearly no experience to sit down and create a great game that people can love. And with the addition of things like social media to pimp yourself out on or Steam Greenlight, you don't necessarily need to have industry connections to ensure your game is a success. To me, these are fantastic improvements in development. However, with these major upsides also comes a major downside, which can be taken advantage of. The easier that game development becomes, the easier it is for those who want to exploit the largest media market on the planet will become. Which is what I want to be talking about today, but before I do, I want to talk about the three major problems that I have found in the indie development circles. And while none of these are limited to games development, I do find that they don't really get the spotlight shined on them as much as they would if they were outside of games, due to society still seeing video games as mostly childish toys for children or man-children. First, I really can't stand poorly built games with poor gameplay that market themselves on a so-called progressive message, like the game Sunset by Tale of Tales that wasn't marketed for its gameplay but instead was marketed for its storytelling and characters' race, and that's it. Well, while I'm a person who could definitely get behind a good story in a game, there needs to be a little bit more there for me to justify dropping money on that project, and as it turns out, most consumers seem to have agreed with me because Sunset was a massive flop. Which honestly, if I was the developer, I probably would have turned around and taken some of the criticism I got into consideration on my next project if there was going to be one, or attempted to even try to update my current product to fix some of the issues that people have had with it. Unfortunately for Tale of Tales, they didn't do any of this, and instead they lashed out against the consumer who failed to understand just how deep and interesting their game is, due to the fact that Tale of Tales were pretentious hipsters, which leads right into my second point. Second, one of the most glaring issues that I've seen with indie developers are the devs themselves. I'm not saying that all indie developers are assholes, but there are way too many who have the spotlight right now that definitely are assholes. Whether they're telling people to choke on their dick and kill themselves, or dismissing the fact that someone who was at their wedding was claiming that they were sexually assaulted, or telling people that they aren't human and shouldn't be treated like humans, indie developers in the last few years really have started to believe themselves to be celebrities and have the egos that come along with it. While I've never had interactions with, say, Phil Fish, I have had interactions with Jonathan Blow, the developer behind Braid and the upcoming indie title The Witness, which ended with him blocking me no more than 15 minutes after I tweeted him a picture of Braid downloading in my Steam library saying, "I can't wait to play through this game again, thank you Mr. Blow." Which, to be honest, is no surprise, because if you actually sat down and watched the documentary Indie Game the Movie, which I have watched several times, you can clearly see that Blow is one of the most pretentious game developers out there, going as far as to say that he doesn't like when people tell them the reasons why they like his games, because if they like him for the reasons that he doesn't want them to like him, he gets upset, or crying when Soulja Boy said that he liked his game. Jonathan Blow's ego, if it was to take a physical manifestation, would be large enough to block out the sun. Another developer I can talk about is David Galan, a developer who created the game called I Hit This Call Every Day, which is about playing as a tech support, and it looks like it was drawn in MS Paint. Now granted, this is a more intricate game than I could probably ever make, but it was nothing spectacular or anything even special, and kind of goes back up into the first category of poor gameplay. Now David S. Galan's game may not have been a hit, and he kind of failed as an indie developer, and now he hates indie development and video games in general, but his personality has shined through all of that. He's on a one-man crusade against people like Total Biscuit for supporting Gamergate, and Gamergate in and of itself, something that at this point, if they would have just stopped paying attention to, would fade into obscurity, but they don't want to do that. One of his most well-known moments was when he came out onto Twitter for some reason during his massive mental breakdown to let everybody know who follows him that while he was masturbating at one point, he thought of Gamergate as he ejaculated. This is the man who's in indie game development. And now we can move on to the biggest one. A man I've talked about multiple times before, and I'll talk about him again. The big indie developer himself, the one that people outright refuse to call an indie developer for good reason, because he's been around in the industry for 20 years, but he still calls himself an indie developer, so let's just go with that. Tim Schafer, a man who blocked me after I asked him why he couldn't finish a simple point-and-click game with a budget of $3.3 million when the game Dragon's Crown by Vanillaware was finished for just over $1 million. Though this may seem like I'm being an asshole for asking this kind of question, it's a question that a lot of people have been asking, especially when the game Broken Age Kickstarter only wanted a couple $100,000 and not millions. Pointing out that a developer with a history of going over budget and can't finish a game isn't able to finish a game that's on an outdated genre like a point and click is what most people should be doing. Since we're talking about budgets, let's just glide right into my third and final problem. Indie developers who never produce a final product but are totally fine with asking people for more and more money to work on their game. While once again, this isn't limited to video games, it's becoming way too common with the rise of Patreon, Indiegogo, and Kickstarter, and there are definitely plenty of Kickstarters and crowdfunding campaigns I can think of off the top of my head. Funded, the products are undelivered. Developers like Slade Vienna, also known as Roguestar, who ran 2 funding products for his game Fleetcom, and has yet to produce anything meaningful since the game got successfully greenlit on Steam thanks to the efforts of the hashtag, once again, Gamergate. I've attempted to have people reach out to Roguestar on my behalf due to him blocking me on social media, but I've gotten no response. Unless he's sticking to being passively aggressive while tweeting about those damn trolls in between his attempts to have people hack websites like Gawker on his behalf, or threatening drive-by shootings. I did have a follower of mine on Twitter tell me that he did start a thread about the game's development on the game's official Steam page, asking if there has been any updates at all, but the thread was deleted. Well, I can't confirm or deny this, so I want you guys to take this with a grain of salt. It doesn't really strike me as out of the ordinary. Roguestar is not the only developer who has run funding for his game but has not produced a product. Another indie game developer and feminist hero and all-around useless loudmouth, Brianna Wu, ran a Kickstarter to raise money to port her iOS game Revolution 60 to PC. And while the project was funded, it has no product and no real update beyond her saying, well, because of an internet hashtag, once again, Gamergate, I can no longer work on this game anymore. I'm sorry, because apparently she's an incompetent child who doesn't know how to act like a fucking adult and look away from the screen or get off Twitter for a few hours to work on the thing that she's been paid to do. Instead, Brianna Wu has been attaching herself to pretty much every aspect of social justice heroism she can, with the newest attempt being her latching herself like a parasite onto Black Lives Matter. And while that may seem like a noble goal to raise awareness for the mortality of black citizens in the United States, make no mistake, she's not doing this because she cares about the rate at which black youth are killed by police officers. She does this because she wants to parade herself around as a champion for the cause. Much like a man known as J-Ray, she's much less interested in civil rights or social justice, and much more interested in being the leader in the fight for civil rights or social justice. This doesn't strike me as a person with upstanding character, and to be honest, if I could find a way, I would have thrown her up into point 1 as well, and point 2. But that would have just been repeating myself. To me, the inability to fulfill your part of the deal, which led to people giving you money but deciding to keep the money anyway, is a scam. And speaking of scams, let's finally move on to today's main topic, Journey of the Light. Journey of the Light is the newest attempt by indie developers attempting to use the emerging market of indie games to rake in some cash without putting in any effort, and is also an example of why Steam needs to have a more hands-on approach to their Steam Greenlight service, which then will help them knock down some of the bullshit and the scams that are currently floating around on Steam. Because make no mistake, even though Journey of the Light has come to light as being a scam, it's not the only one that is currently available for purchase right now. The developer himself has basically acknowledged that the game is completely broken, you cannot play it, and cannot finish even the first level, you're not able to get any of the Steam achievements, but he's still charging you for it. This became so apparent that this guy was a scam artist that Steam had to actually override their own refund system to allow you to refund the game, regardless of the amount of time that you've played it, and regardless of how long you've owned it. So there's only really 2 options that this guy has. Either he's an incompetent developer who shouldn't have been charging people any money in the first place, or he's a scam artist. And while I do think that it is a good thing that Steam is allowing people to refund the game no matter how long they played it, I really think this should be one of those things where Steam goes into your library on their own and removes the game from your library and gives you your money back. 100% to across the board to all people. Because there are going to be a good chunk of people out there, a high percentage in fact, who are just too lazy to actually refund this product, and this guy in turn is going to be able to make money off of those kinds of people. In short, with indie game development rising and the amount of indie game developers out there trying to put their products onto Steam, people like working on the games like Seedscape or Freak. Full disclosure, I am friends with many of the developers who are working on Freak, and I think that they are fantastic people, and I think you should support them in any possible way that you can. But again, full disclosure, I'm friends with these people. And Seedscape, I'm not in any personal relationship with Jennifer Daw, but she is a sweet person. And honestly, I will disclose the fact that I follow her on Twitter and I've talked to her on Twitter several times, and she was what inspired me to get into indie development. I still think you guys should support her game because it looks adorable and it looks pretty fun as well. But I just want to make sure I disclose all that. Indie development is becoming a mixed bag, really, with a lot of bad people attempting to latch onto it in an attempt to make cash because they have no other marketable skills. Those are the kind of people that we have working on indie game development. And all I'm going to say to you guys in the long and short of it is that I want you, when you purchase an indie game off of Greenlight, to really pay attention to what you're buying. Make sure you know what you're doing. And another thing that I would like to suggest to a lot of indie developers out there who are working on games that are on Greenlight, who are afraid that their game may not be liked by other people, produce a demo of your game. A small demo of your game. Give people 15 to 20 minutes to try out your game to see if they like it or not, if they want to give you money. That, I think, would drive more people to want to play your game. My game, in and of itself, is going to be a game that you have to buy. However, I also am going to put out a 2-hour-long demo for the game to see if people are really interested in it or not. And I'm not going to charge people very much. I think I talked about it before. I would charge people about $5 for it. That's about it. But I would love people to be able to buy my game, and I would love to make money off of the game. But I want you guys to be able to play it first so you know. Which is why piracy is a thing now. Piracy's been a thing for a long time, but piracy is rampant in gaming because we don't have demos that much anymore. Demos are a rare occurrence. When you see a developer go, oh, we have a demo out, like Xe just put out a demo for Akiba's Trip on Steam, it's an abnormality, which leads to people just pirating the game and then doing it that way. You need to be able to be more consumer friendly. And even if you are an indie developer who's working on something small, you need to make sure you look at it through the eyes of a consumer and not just through the eyes of you're an indie game developer, you're working on a product and you deserve money for that product. You need to make yourself out to be as professional as possible while still working through the lens of a human being. So with all that out of the way, that's my entire video about indie game development and Journey to the Light. I wanted to talk about Journey to the Light more, but I think everybody's really just touched on it. Don't buy this game. Don't support this game. Keep your eye out for this guy. If anything he touches, just immediately assume that it's poison because that's what it seems to be at this point. My name is Tyler Valle, and thank you guys for watching. You guys have a great day.